Focus on you until you win. Have you ever felt like you're carrying the weight of a world that never truly understands you? Every day you keep pushing forward quietly, steadily, without complaint, and yet it feels like no one notices. No recognition, no glance of empathy. Somewhere inside you ask yourself, why should I keep going? What am I really living for? That question feels like a crossroad. One path is giving up, letting life drag you along, slowly sinking into mediocrity. The other path continues silent. No applause, no praise, just persistence. And if today you find yourself standing at that crossroad, this is your reminder. Not to comfort you or put you back to sleep, but to awaken the strength within you. The strength to focus on yourself until you win. The ancients called it Stoicism, a philosophy not meant to stay locked in books, but one that once guided emperors, warriors, and ordinary people who survived war's loss and suffering. They didn't need noise. They didn't need recognition. They held on to one simple truth. The only thing you can truly control is yourself. You can do the same. You don't need the whole world to believe in you. You don't need a stadium cheering you on. You only need inner discipline, persistence, and silence, and the belief that each small step you take today quietly builds a stronger version of yourself. Remember the story of a former U.S. Navy SEAL? He folded his bed precisely every morning, tight corners, sharp lines, perfect edges. No officers were watching anymore. No inspection were waiting. He did it for one reason, because that's who I am. No audience, no reward. Just a silent commitment to keep discipline alive in his veins. That is the spirit you need to carry. A promise not spoken out loud but engraved in your heart. I will never betray myself. Real victory isn't forged under bright lights. It's built in dull, quiet days, in unseen moments when you choose the right thing over the easy thing. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "Be tolerant with others, but strict with yourself." These two principles helped him stand firm through political storms and the fire of battle. And today, in a modern world full of temptations and distractions, his words remain a sharp reminder for us all. Take a look at any morning. When you wake up, it's not just another day, it's a vote. Each small choice you make, writing a few lines in your journal, meditating for 5 minutes, setting your top 3 priorities, these are the bricks that build your inner fortress. And when you repeat them every day, you're declaring to the world, I am responsible for my own life. This is the beginning of the journey, a long, demanding, but significant journey. You cannot walk it half-heartedly. You must start by building a solid foundation, a fortress within, forged from discipline and self-control. Because before you can win anything out there, you must first learn to conquer yourself in the smallest habits, the quietest choices. And this is the first step we will take together. Build your inner fortress with discipline. There's a truth most of us know, but keep trying to avoid. The biggest enemy isn't out there. It's inside of us. It's not the annoying coworker, not the financial pressure, not the harsh comments on social media. The real enemy is the weakness, the laziness, the quiet lack of discipline that eats at us daily. The fiercest battles don't happen on warfields. They occur in the bedroom each morning when you choose between getting up right away or hitting snooze. They happen in the kitchen where you stand between greasy fast food and a healthier meal you know will serve your body better. They happen in that split second when you pick up a book or scroll through TikTok for another 2 hours. These are battles no one sees or praises, but they define who you are. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They believed self-control was the strongest fortress and self-discipline was the only road to freedom. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, who was both a warrior and a philosopher, reminded himself every morning that he would meet the ungrateful, the deceitful, the envious. But instead of resenting it, he prepared his mind with discipline so he wouldn't be surprised. That's how he built his inner walls before stepping into the outer battlefield. In America today, you can see the same spirit in a night shift nurse. After 12 grueling hours while everyone else sleeps, she spends 30 more minutes studying for her nursing degree. No one notices, no one applauds. Yet she does it night after night. That's discipline. Or think of a truck driver crossing thousands of miles of frozen highways. Instead of blasting entertainment radio, he plays an audiobook on finance hour by hour, stacking knowledge in silence. No cheering crowd, just a long road and the engines hum, but those quiet hours lay the bricks of his inner fortress. Discipline is never about grand gestures that impress right away. It begins with the small things, but when repeated daily, they become a foundation no storm can shake. Every new day, you have a choice. Wake up in chaos, flooded with dozens of notifications, messages, and headlines, or claim 5 minutes of silence to write down the 3 most important things you'll do. It sounds simple, but in that moment, you've already cast a vote for the stronger version of yourself. Neuroscience shows the brain performs better with set rituals. Repeated morning actions create neural anchors that reduce anxiety and boost focus. Americans have a saying, "Win the morning, win the day." And the truth is, you don't need anyone watching. When you wake up early to work out or patiently write a few lines in your journal, you send yourself a simple and powerful message. I control my life, it doesn't control me. Many people fail at discipline because they're chasing dramatic change, a significant turning point that flips everything. But success never comes from a single spark. It comes from the accumulation of small choices. In Atomic Habits, James Clear called it the 1% compounding effect. If you improve just 1% daily, you have doubled your ability in 70 days. That's not magic, it's math. Like the single mother in Texas who, after putting her child to bed, opened her old laptop every night to learn coding. A year later, she landed a programming job that changed her life completely. Not because of one grand moment, but because of countless quiet nights no one ever saw. Each night was a brick laid, and one day the wall stood tall before her. Discipline doesn't live in the mind alone. It starts in the body. A clear mind needs a body that can endure. Epictetus said, "Don't complain that your body is weak. Train it." Modern people often neglect their bodies, skipping sleep, abusing fast food, yet hope their minds stay sharp. But a rotten foundation cannot hold for long. Exercise isn't about vanity, it's about durability. 3 runs a week, 2 lifting sessions, and 10 minutes of stretching daily are not routines for the body alone. They're lessons to the self. Hard doesn't mean stop. Every time you willingly enter discomfort, you train your mind to endure pain and fatigue. And that's precisely what you'll need when life throws the unexpected at you. The greatest danger on the path of discipline isn't pain, it's emptiness. You work out for 3 months and see no change. You blog for half a year and no one reads. You study a language for a year and still stumble. In that moment, most people quit thinking they're on the wrong path. But Stoicism reminds us the process never betrays. It's like a farmer planting seeds, tending the soil for months before seeing a single sprout. The impatient will walk away. The wise endure knowing roots are forming. Just because results haven't shown doesn't mean you've failed, you're still in the planting season. One secret to maintaining discipline is learning to reward yourself, not with parties or shopping, but with quiet recognition. Track your habits daily. Tick them off in a notebook or an app. Watch the chain grow longer and longer and feel that silent pride. That reward is more substantial than any praise from outside. Psychologists call this self-reward. The brain links satisfaction with disciplined action, reinforcing the habit. The more often you prove to yourself that you can, the stronger your inner belief becomes. But remember, discipline isn't a prison. It's a compass. Those without it think they're free, but are enslaved to impulses and temptations. The disciplined may seem strict, but they're the ones truly free. Seneca said, "No man is more enslaved than the one who chains himself with laziness." Discipline doesn't steal your freedom, it gives it back. And when you've built that inner fortress of discipline, you'll notice the world outside is not quiet. Arrows will fly. Noise will pound at your walls. Criticism, suspicion, endless phone alerts, subtle comparisons. They will all test you. Even your strongest walls may crack if you don't know how to handle them. That's when you need another strength, the ability to stay focused in constant noise. And that will be the next step on this journey, learning how to master focus and ignore the noise so you don't just build the fortress, but hold it strong against every storm life brings. Step 2, master your focus and ignore the noise. Things should get easier after you've built your inner fortress with discipline, but they don't. The next challenge is more subtle because it doesn't attack head-on. It slips in through every minute of your day. It's noise. Noise isn't just the loud street outside or the chatter of a crowd. It's the phone buzzing again and again. It's the endless stream of shocking headlines. The quiet comparison creeps in when you see someone bragging online. Noise is anything that pulls you off your path even slightly. And if it happens day after day, the discipline you worked so hard to build will start to crack. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, ask yourself, is this truly necessary? That simple question was his weapon to cut through the cloud of distractions. Yet in today's world, what should be simple has become one of our most brutal battles. Technology and society have turned noise into a habit. Our brains are wired to react to novelty. So every notification, every text, every short video is bait, pulling our attention away. Neuroscience shows that each interruption costs the brain at least 23 minutes to return to deep focus. If you let yourself get distracted 10 times a day, you've lost nearly 4 hours, not because you lack ability, but because you let the noise control you. Look at an ordinary day. In the morning, you sit down to write out a report. A single ping from your phone, you check a few messages, then scroll a bit more. When you return, your mind is scattered, your energy drained. You plan to work out in the afternoon, but one funny video turns into another, and suddenly 30 minutes are gone. You want to read at night, but a late email throws your mind off track. At the end of the day, you tell yourself you were busy all day. But being busy doesn't mean progress. You're trapped in noise reacting, not living. A former U.S. Marine once said, on the battlefield, we never tried to eliminate the explosions, the shouting, the chaos. We only had to know which voice was the command and tune out the rest. That's the skill you need in modern life. You can't remove all noise, but you can choose to ignore it. The difference between a focused person and a scattered one lies in knowing what belongs to them and what doesn't. The Stoics called this the discipline of distinction, separating what's in your control from what isn't. So how do you train focus in a world full of temptations? First, clear your battlefield. No one wins surrounded by clutter. Start with your space, a clean desk, a phone with notifications off, and a computer with only the necessary tabs. That's your first fence protecting attention. Next, clear your mind. Write down every worry, every task, every half-finished plan. Once they're on paper, your head feels lighter. Writing is like emptying a heavy pack, so you can walk forward without being dragged back. Then practice deep work. Choose a set time each day, 25 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour for one task only. No phone, no music, no social media, just one mission. At first, your mind will resist like a beast used to constant feeding, suddenly starved. But if you stay patient, the silence appears. And in that silence, clarity returns. American author Cal Newport calls this the rarest skill of the 21st century, the ability to focus intensely. Great books, world-changing inventions didn't come from multitasking, but from long, quiet, focused hours. But focus isn't just a tool for getting things done. It's how you reclaim your life. You take back ownership of your mind whenever you cut out the noise. Seneca warned, "No one wastes more time than the man who chases what does not belong to him." If each day you let others decide what you think, how you feel, what you do, you've handed away your whole life without noticing. Try a small experiment. Spend 10 minutes each morning without touching your phone. Sit still, breathe, and ask yourself what truly matters today. The answer will carry more power than 100 voices outside if it rises from within. Noise sometimes comes from people close to you, a friend who constantly criticizes, a coworker who sows doubt, a relative who continually compares. You don't need to cut them off completely, but you must set boundaries. Choose what enters your mind. You can't stop the wind from blowing like a house, but you can close your windows. Focus is the door you hold. You decide who comes in and what gets shut out. A helpful tool is the goal filter. Imagine 3 layers: long-term goals, mid-term goals, and today's tasks. If an action doesn't pass through all 3, it's noise. For example, your long-term goal is to write a book. The mid-term goal is to keep a daily writing habit. Today's task is 500 words. If someone invites you for beers, ask yourself, does this help me write? If the answer is no, no matter how fun it's noise. This way you don't fight the whole world, you stay loyal to your compass. And remember, focus must be trained like a muscle. You're doing mental reps each time you silence a notification, skip a pointless chat, or say no to comparison. Over time, your mind grows stronger, less shaken by the chaos around you. Like a soldier on the battlefield, you won't panic at explosions, you'll hear only your command. You rise to a new level once you've built discipline and learned to focus through noise. But the journey doesn't end there, because something more dangerous than outer noise is waiting, the inner voice of blame and excuse. The one whispering, it's not your fault that you're stuck because of circumstances, because of other people, because luck hasn't arrived yet. If you fail to confront it, you'll fall back into the victim loop, even with discipline and focus. And that is the next challenge on this path, to take full responsibility for your life. No blaming, no complaining, just standing tall and claiming ownership. Step 3, take full responsibility, no excuses. You can have discipline, you can train your focus and block out the noise. But if you still hold on to the habit of blaming circumstances, other people, or fate, then all your efforts remain surface level. This is one of the biggest traps that keeps people from rising higher. We often look outside ourselves to explain delay, failure, or pain, because blaming is easier than facing the truth. You feel a temporary relief when you say, I failed because my boss plays favorites, or I can't change because my family doesn't support me. But in reality, you've just taken away the one power. You truly have the power to change yourself. Stoicism has stressed this for thousands of years. Epictetus, an enslaved person turned philosopher, once taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. That reminder isn't just about courage, it's about responsibility. Because when you accept that every result in your life has roots in you, you don't need to cover it up with excuses. You may look naive to those addicted to blame, but you're actually getting stronger. There's a story from the military that many American soldiers still recall. An instructor named Jocko Willink once told his trainees after a failed drill, "Who's responsible? I am. I'm the commander, and everything that happens here is on me." Not because he directly caused the mistake, but because he knew if he didn't own it, the team would waste time pointing fingers instead of finding solutions. The moment he said it, the atmosphere shifted. The arguing stopped, the defenses dropped, and everyone focused on how to improve. That spirit of extreme ownership later became a core principle in leadership and business. Life is no different. Remember when you were frustrated by stalled work, a broken relationship, or a failed plan? Your first reaction was to blame someone, the environment, or bad luck. But the more you feed that mindset, the more control you lose. Stoicism reminds us that the only thing we truly control is our own thoughts and actions. Stop being a victim when you accept that this is my fault and I can change it. You become the captain of your ship. Modern psychology calls this the internal locus of control. Those with an external locus believe their fate depends on luck or other people. Those with an internal locus believe their actions are the deciding factor. It isn't hard to see who goes further. The person who says, I can't because they won't let me stay stuck. The one who says, I haven't done it yet because I haven't learned enough or tried enough, keeps moving forward. Try this simple exercise. Write down 3 recent disappointments. For each one, write 2 sentences I blame and take responsibility for. You'll realize that in most cases, your share of responsibility is bigger than you thought. Maybe you fell behind because you stayed up too late, not because the workload was too heavy. Perhaps the argument escalated because of your impatience, not only because the other person was difficult. Maybe you haven't succeeded yet because you quit halfway, not just because opportunities were scarce. The moment you write it down, you begin to reclaim ownership. Taking responsibility doesn't mean punishing yourself or carrying all the guilt. It means choosing action over complaint. Seneca once wrote, "We complain that life is short but waste too much of it." When you take responsibility, you stop wasting energy searching for culprits. You use that energy to move forward. Blame feels good in the moment, but its cost lingers. Responsibility feels heavy initially, but it gives you strength and freedom over time. In a world quick to point fingers, the person who can put a hand on their chest and say, "This part is mine," is the one who's truly grown. You can start building this habit with a control matrix. Draw 2 columns, what I control and what I don't. When something happens, write it all out. Then cross off the column about what you can't control. Focus only on what remains. For example, you can't control who interviews you, but you can control how well you prepare. You can't control the market price, but you can control your spending habits and your study of investing. Each time you focus on your part, you train your brain to take responsibility. Some fear that owning everything will crush them under the weight, but in fact, it lightens you. Once you stop blaming, stop wasting energy on anger and resentment. Instead, you focus on action, and action sets you free. So the real question isn't, who put me here, but what will I do now? That question marks the line between those who quit and those who win. Winning isn't about never failing. It's about never giving up responsibility and standing back up after every failure. And once you've learned how to take responsibility, you'll face a new challenge. Sometimes you'll want it to quit, not because of anyone else, but because you feel tired, drained, ready to give up. This is the most brutal fight against the instinct to stop. So how do you push through those moments to keep moving forward, even when motivation runs dry? That's the lesson waiting in the next step. Step 4, learn how to rise and persist even when you want to quit. There's a truth few dare to admit. Greatest enemy of the journey isn't out there. It lives in the very moment you want to stop. It's not when opportunities run out, but when your mind whispers, "That's enough, give up." Those words never shout. They come in the quiet fatigue after a long day in the late night, when you stare at the ceiling and all your efforts feel meaningless in the morning, when you pull the blanket tighter and tell yourself skipping a day won't matter. In these moments, silent hidden the backbone of a dream often snaps. The Stoics saw this long ago. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you wake in the morning, remember you were born to do the work of a human being. So why resist it?" That question shines a mirror on our laziness. We are no different from the Romans 2,000 years ago, quick to trade persistence for comfort, quick to give up when results don't come fast, quick to forget why we began in the first place. But in those moments, the ability to stand up defines who you are. Psychology calls this the psychological fatigue threshold. Brain signals stop to conserve energy when the body or mind is stretched. The problem is that the brain doesn't distinguish between exhaustion and mental resistance. Most of the time, you haven't reached your absolute limit. You've only hit the false wall your brain built to protect your comfort. Marines, marathon runners, and anyone who has endured brutal training know this. After your mind screams, "Stop," your body still has at least 40% left. Picture a Marine in training. Cold rain pours down the unit, crawling through mud for hours. Some throw up their hands and quit, but others, shivering, grit their teeth and crawl one more yard. Then another. They aren't stronger or braver by birth. They choose not to obey the voice that says, "Quit." That choice is what separates those who finish from those who fall short. Everyday life is filled with these moments. You're halfway through a draft and want to delete it because it feels worthless. You've been at the gym for a month and see no change in the mirror, so you want to quit. You're studying a new language, and after weeks of confusion, you crave the safety of giving up. In all these moments, the difference between success and failure lies in one action. Will you rise and take one more step? Epictetus once reminded us, it's not because things are hard that we don't dare. It's because we don't dare that they are hard. That truth strips away the illusion of quitting. Rarely you can't, you convince yourself you can't. And the only way to break that cycle is with small, defiant actions. Write one more page, even if you want to erase it. Run 5 more minutes, even if your legs ache. Learn 5 more words, even when your mind begs for rest. These small acts become the foundation of great strength. Modern psychology calls this opposite action acting against your feelings. When you want to collapse, do the opposite. Stand up, take a step, make a call, write a line. You don't have to pretend everything's fine. You prove through action that your emotions don't control you. The Stoics didn't deny fatigue or sadness. They faced it head-on, then chose action aligned with reason, not emotion. A practical method for building this resilience is note, reflect, rewire. When you want to quit, jot down the moment, the situation, and the feeling. Then reflect, why did I feel this way? How did I react? Finally, write how you'd like to respond if it happens again. Over time, patterns appear. And once you see them clearly, you hold the key to breaking them. Remember, persistence is not magic reserved for the chosen few. It's a skill. And like any skill, it's built through practice. The farmer waters the soil daily without seeing sprouts. The blacksmith hammers the metal hundreds of times before it takes shape. The warrior swings thousands of strikes before battle. Persistence is simply continuing when results are invisible. And don't forget another truth: you will fall. You will have days you quit, days you break promises to yourself. What matters isn't that you stumbled, it's whether you stand up again. One skipped day won't ruin the journey, but a skipped week, a skipped month will erase it all. The Stoics didn't punish themselves when they fell. They treated it as data, an opportunity to adjust and move forward. You can build what I call a resilience bank. Record it each time you resist the urge to quit, no matter how small. After weeks, you'll have a list of victories where you persisted. That record proves that you've overcome before and you can again. When fatigue returns, open it. It will remind you, I have done this and still can. When you learn to persist even when you want to quit, you cross into a new territory of yourself. You discover you're far stronger than you believed. And at that point, a new challenge appears, learning to trust the process even when results are nowhere in sight. Because persistence doesn't always bring instant rewards. Sometimes you must walk for months, even years before seeing the light. And that is where Stoicism leads us to the next lesson. Step 5, trust the process even when you can't see the results. There's a paradox that makes many people quit too early. They work hard, plant seeds, sweat daily. But after a month, they look in the mirror and see no change. After a year, their bank account still isn't complete. After writing and posting, no one seems to care. So they tell themselves, maybe this path isn't for me, and they stop. They don't realize they're walking away from a field only planted long before harvest season. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't measure the worth of action by immediate results, but by whether the action itself was correct. Picture a farmer. Day after day, he plows, plants, waters. Months pass and nothing sprouts. The impatient man gives up. But the wise man knows that what matters is happening beneath the soil. Roots are stretching, the earth is shifting, life is preparing to rise. If you quit too soon, you don't just lose the harvest, you waste all the labor you have already invested. Faith in the process is the ability to keep tending the soil even when your eyes see nothing. Modern psychology calls this delayed gratification. The classic marshmallow experiment proved that children who could wait for a bigger reward later were more likely to succeed as adults. But waiting doesn't mean sitting idle. It's active patience, continuing to act to practice, even while the reward hasn't arrived. The Stoics reminded us, do not let your mind depend on what hasn't yet. You plant seeds because that's what must be done. The fruit will ripen in its own time. Think of Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb. If he had judged himself only by instant results, history would never have had electric light. Edison didn't just persist, he trusted the process, believing each failure brought him closer to success. James Dyson went through thousands of failed prototypes before building a working vacuum cleaner. Their common trait was not luck, but an unshakable faith in the process. In sports, this is often summed up in the phrase, trust the process. A bodybuilder can't expect muscle after 1 week in the gym. A player can't expect mastery after a few games. But the body and mind shift quietly through thousands of hours of training. So quiet you don't notice until one day someone else looks at you and says, you've changed. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, time is a river and all that happens flows on like water. That wisdom is a guide to patience. You can't rush a river. You can only walk alongside it knowing each drop carries you toward the sea. In the same way, every habit, every small effort you make carries you forward, even if the path isn't yet visible. One of the biggest traps that kills trust in the process is comparison. You look around and see others rising quickly while you struggle. You forget they also had invisible years of growth. You didn't see them. Seneca said, no one becomes wise by accident. Growth always comes from the unseen days. Don't let the lack of spotlight fool you into thinking you're not advancing. So how do you build trust in the process? First, detach action from immediate results. Set goals based on habits, not quick achievements. Instead of saying, I must lose 10 pounds in a month, say I will train 4 days a week and eat with discipline. Instead of saying I must get 10,000 followers in 3 months, I will write 2 quality posts weekly. When you measure yourself by presence and consistency instead of instant results, you feel lighter. Paradoxically, results come faster. Second, celebrate small progress. The brain needs recognition to keep motivation alive. You'll miss the entire journey if you wait until the big win to feel proud. Celebrate when you hold a habit for 7 days, 30 days, or simply when you overcame laziness today. Every small victory is another brick reinforcing your faith that the process is working. Third, build accumulated evidence. Keep a journal of daily actions toward your goals. Record pages read, workouts done, hours studied. After months, look back. You'll see proof in black and white that you've been moving forward. This evidence pushes back when your mind screams it's useless. Finally, the process can be connected to a greater meaning. A farmer plants not just to eat today, but to feed his family. An artist writes not only to finish a piece, but also to move hearts. And your process isn't just about your small self. It's about becoming stronger so you can bring value to the world. When that larger meaning comes into focus, slow results no longer discourage you. And one day you'll look back over your path and realize something extraordinary. Every patient effort, every season of unseen planting has joined together into a vast field. Success didn't come from one dramatic breakthrough, but thousands of days spent trusting the process. But once you've learned to trust the process, a new challenge appears, holding on to a long-term vision without drifting into temporary temptations. The process is the path, but vision is the lighthouse, and that will be the next step of this journey. Step 6, hold on to your long-term vision even when everything feels unclear. There will be days you wake up and it feels like the whole world is against you. Work isn't moving forward, relationships are tangled, and your health isn't what you hoped. You try, you stay patient, yet everything ahead looks foggy, as if you're walking through thick mist without seeing the road. This is when most people stop because they no longer know the lighthouse guiding them. But it's precisely in these days when your short-term sight is clouded that you must learn to hold on to the long-term vision, because without it, you will lose your way and drift back to the place you fought so hard to leave. The Stoics taught that results and circumstances are never truly ours. The only thing we control is the choice we make in each moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Keep your life's goal clear so every gust of wind does not pull you away." He knew that in battle and in politics, chaos would often hide the way forward. If you only rely on short-term vision, you'll give up when the winds shift. But if a long-term vision lives in your heart, you'll know where you're headed even when you can't yet see the path. Modern psychology calls this temporal discounting, the tendency to undervalue long-term gains in favor of quick rewards. That's why we pick fast food over a healthy diet, scrolling social media over reading short pleasures over future growth. Holding your long-term vision means winning against this instinct. You say no to today's easy prize in exchange for tomorrow's lasting value. It's a quiet strength, rarely praised, but it's the root of every outstanding achievement. Look at the journeys of those who dared to go far. When Jeff Bezos left a stable Wall Street job to build Amazon from a garage, many thought he was insane. He wasn't working for a paycheck, but for a vision to create the most customer-centric company in the world. In the early years, Amazon bled money. Warehouses were under pressure, and critics doubted at every turn. But he kept moving forward because the lighthouse stayed, he never went out. Years later, the results spoke for themselves. Long-term vision is that inner flame you must protect even when others laugh at you. The Stoics had their own way of cultivating vision. They called it living according to nature, living in alignment with your true essence. It means knowing what matters to you, what's worthy of a lifetime of pursuit. Seneca once wrote, "No wind is favorable if a man does not know what port he is sailing." You can stay busy every day, but without clarity of destination, your effort just circles. Long-term vision is choosing a path and living as if there is no option but forward. When life feels unclear, there are ways to keep your mind steady. First, write a personal manifesto, a short line reminding you why you began. Read it daily to remember your larger purpose, even if the day is hard. Second, create symbolic actions, small habits that embody your vision. If you want resilience, run each day no matter the weather. If you want creativity, write 500 words every morning. These acts are anchors holding your ship steady in the storm. Another practice is weekly vision checkpoints. Sit down. Silence your phone and just you and a notebook. Ask yourself 3 questions. Am I still on course? What pulled me off track, and what do I need to adjust next week? The answers may sting, but honesty with yourself is the only thing that keeps you from drifting into darkness. Remember, long-term vision doesn't always shine bright. Often it is just a small flame flickering in the wind. Your job is to protect, shield, and feed it daily. And one day when the fog lifts, you'll see the road clearly, and that flame will be strong enough to light the way for others too. But there's a truth you must accept: on a long journey you will stumble, tire out, even collapse. Holding your vision doesn't mean never falling. It means every time you do, you know how to rise, reset your course, and continue. That is the art of resilience, which will be the next step of this journey. Step 7. The art of recovery after every fall. No one who has ever reached victory walked the path without falling. Yet most people fear falling so much that they choose to stay still. They'd rather not try than face the pain of failure. But to those who understand Stoicism, losing is not the end. It is a necessary chapter. A fall is only dangerous if you never rise again. If you know how to recover, every stumble becomes a step that lifts you higher. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle becomes the path." His words show us that every setback is not wasted. It is the absolute path where you are tested, reshaped, and rebuilt. But to recover after a fall, you must learn the art of accepting, facing, and restarting. Some falls come from exhaustion. You push into work, burn the candle at both ends until body and spirit collapse. Some falls come from illusion. You set expectations too high, then break down when results don't match. Others come without reason. You wake one morning and life feels empty. The first step of recovery is naming your fall. Not to complain, but to recognize it. Because until you know what caused your fall, you can't rise correctly. The Stoics never denied emotions. They observed them. When you are sad, call it sadness. When you are drained, admit you are drained. The biggest trap is lying to yourself, pretending you're fine, walking forward until you collapse completely. Recovery begins with honesty, and honesty with yourself is often the hardest thing to practice. Once you've named the fall, the next step is to create a ritual of restart. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to bring you back to your center. One deep breath in silence, one page of journaling to empty the weight in your mind. One long walk without your phone. These are keys, because when you fall, your mind is tangled, knotted like a rope. You can't untie it all at once, but you can loosen one knot at a time with slow, deliberate action. Modern psychology confirms this. Writing about negative experiences lowers stress and helps restructure thought. When you write, "I failed because I wasn't prepared enough," your brain instantly shifts from emotion to analysis. And in analysis, you begin to see a way forward. Likewise, meditation and deep breathing don't erase problems, but they create a gap where emotion stops drowning out reason. In that gap, you see more clearly and find the next step. A powerful tool is building a recovery bank. Record it each time you push through a challenge, no matter how small. A day you trained even in the rain. A task you finished with no applause, a fear you overcame by speaking your mind. Later, when you fall again, open this list. You'll remember you've risen before and can rise again. Seneca wrote, "Hardship strengthens the soul as labor enhances the body." Your past victories are living proof of that truth. Recovery doesn't mean returning to who you were before. It means returning deeper and wiser, like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're highlighted, becoming part of its beauty. People are the same. Your wounds, mistakes, and failures aren't marks to erase. They are golden lines that make you unique. The art of recovery is carrying your scars as part of your identity, becoming stronger, not despite falling, but because you fell. Picture yourself climbing a mountain. You slip and scrape your knee. If you sit there forever, the hill won't shrink. But if you bandage up, rise, and keep climbing, The wound becomes a story you tell later. The path to victory is never straight. It's full of cliffs, loose rocks, and days you want to quit. But if every fall is followed by rising, then the cycle of falling and standing again is the true definition of victory. But there's another danger once you learn recovery complacency. You begin believing everything is fine as long as you rise after each fall. The truth is, if you keep repeating the same mistake without learning, you walk in circles. That's why recovery must come with learning. Every fall carries a lesson. If you only rise without reflection, you'll trip over the same stone again. But if you pause and ask, what did I learn from this fall? Then each recovery doesn't just restore you, it elevates you. The Stoics taught no one trips twice over the same stone unless they learn nothing. The difference between the mature and the stagnant lies here. So each time you rise, don't rush forward unthinkingly. Step back, study the stone that made you fall. What shape was it? Where did you stop paying attention? How can you avoid it next time? In this moment of reflection, you turn failure into a stair. When you grow used to the rhythm of fall, rise, learn, advance, you become the kind of person even failure cannot break. You no longer fear falling because you know you can recover. That is the greatest freedom. Stoicism gives freedom from the fear of failure. But the journey doesn't end here. Recovery after each fall makes you steadier. Yet true victory demands something more profound, the ability to keep learning for life. Because if you stop learning, you'll return to the same limits. And that will be the next step, how to keep your mind and heart open, always sharpening so you don't just rise from failure, but rise beyond who you were yesterday. Step 8, lifelong learning as the path to constant growth. Most people think learning is only for the early years, a few years in school, a couple of short training courses, some half-read books. But the truth is, if you stop, the world will keep moving forward and leave you behind. Learning isn't an optional add-on. It's the foundation for living, adapting, and growing. And if you genuinely want to focus on yourself until you win, lifelong learning is the pulse that keeps that strength alive. The Stoics never saw learning as a burden. For them, it was breath itself, a way to stay clear-headed amid the chaos of life. Epictetus, born into slavery, turned knowledge into the sharpest weapon to break invisible chains. He didn't study for praise, he studied for freedom. And that's what you need to remember. You don't learn to show off, you know, so that ignorance, blind emotions, or empty living won't enslave you. In our modern world, lifelong learning has become survival. Technology shifts daily, markets turn by the hour. Even relationships keep changing. If you cling to old knowledge, you become outdated in your own life. But if you keep a spirit of learning, you'll always adapt. You don't need to know everything. You need to keep kind of serving and sharpening yourself. That alone makes you hard to replace. Look at the story of Akio Morita, founder of Sony. He began in a small workshop in a country ruined by war. No one taught him how to build a tech empire. He learned from failure markets in every piece of customer feedback. That restless curiosity turned a workshop into a global brand. That is the power of lifelong learning. But learning isn't just taking in new knowledge. It's the courage to admit what you don't know. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The hardest thing is not to be deceived by your thoughts. The arrogance of I already know is the greatest enemy of growth." Many stagnate not because they lack ability, but because they refuse to open themselves to new lessons. If you think you've learned enough, you can be 40 or 50 and still trapped by this. Lifelong learners are different. They stay humble. They see themselves as students of life. And because of that, they never stop growing. So how do you turn learning into a way of life, not just a passing habit? Start with genuine curiosity. When hardship comes, don't ask, why me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Every argument, every failure, every dull moment can be a hidden classroom if you're awake enough to notice. A simple practice is to keep a learning journal. Each night, write one thing you learned that day. It can be small, like I realized I get impatient when I'm hungry, or deep, like I saw that not everyone can share my vision. Over time, that journal becomes proof of your steady, quiet growth. Another tool, the loop of read. Reflect, applim. Don't read to stack information, read to spark questions. Reflect on it and connect it with your own experience. Then apply it even in a small act to turn knowledge into lived reality. Many people fall into the illusion of knowledge, reading dozens of books, but never changing their lives. That's because they stop at reading and reflection. The Stoics warned us that knowledge means nothing if not lived out in action, and don't forget to observe yourself. Some beliefs you've held for years may no longer serve you. Some habits you thought were good may actually slow you down. Lifelong learning means constantly renewing yourself, willing to let go of the old to make room for the new. This takes courage because letting go is more complicated than holding on. But only by shedding the old can you keep growing. Picture each day as sharpening a sword. Leave it untouched and it dulls. And a dull blade is useless no matter how sharp it once was. People are the same. If you stop learning, you dull not from time, but from complacency. But if you keep learning day by day, little by little, you stay sharp and ready for whatever comes. And here's the beauty, lifelong learning doesn't only serve you. As you grow, you naturally become a source of inspiration to others. Often, you don't even need to speak. The way you live and respond, that alone teaches those around you. This is when personal learning and growth turn into a ripple effect. You don't need a stage to teach. Just staying true to your path makes others quietly learn from you. And now the journey bends toward its next turn. Once you've built your inner fortress, mastered, focused, learned to recover from setbacks and embrace lifelong learning, a more profound need arises: connection. Actual growth doesn't stop at the self. It finds its most profound meaning when shared and multiplied. That's why the next step in this journey is building healthy and meaningful relationships. Because no one walks alone forever. Real strength shines brightest when nurtured within the right community. Step 9, building healthy and meaningful relationships. There's a paradox most of us face. The stronger you become, the more disciplined you are. The more you focus on yourself, the lonelier you often feel. As you raise your standards, stop wasting time on empty conversations and refuse relationships that drag you down. You notice a growing distance between you and people who once felt close. It's not that they changed, it's what you did. And this is the following challenge: learning how to build relationships that are not just fillers for emptiness, but connections that help both people grow. The Stoics never advised us to cut ourselves off from the world. They didn't teach you to live as a hermit. On the contrary, Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with endless demands, saw responsibility to the community as part of his duty. He once wrote, "We are born to cooperate like feet, hands, and the rows of teeth. The question isn't whether to have relationships, but who you allow to walk beside you and who you allow into your mind." In today's world, social media gives the illusion of thousands of connections, yet most are hollow. You may have followers by the thousands and still feel like no one truly understands you. This is why you must learn to sort them. A healthy relationship doesn't just give you a quick laugh, it sustains your focus, discipline, and belief in your path. After every meeting or conversation, ask yourself, did this person give me energy or drain it? Be honest, and the answer will be clear. Some people leave you lighter, encouraged, ready to keep going. Others leave you heavy, confused, unsettled. That's the line between healthy and toxic connections. In the military, when choosing teammates for dangerous missions, the criteria isn't who's the most fun or the easiest to be around, it's who's the most reliable. The one who stays calm in chaos. The one who won't abandon you halfway. The one who tells you the truth even when it stings. Life works the same way. A true friend isn't someone who always agrees with you, but someone who stops you when you're straying. A healthy friend doesn't climb into the pit with you, they extend their hand to pull you out. Science has proven this too. Emotions spread. It's called emotional contagion. Spending too much time with the pessimistic optimism becomes harder. Stay near the habitually lazy and disciplined will slip away. But surround yourself with those who live responsibly and you'll absorb their strength. You can't control every part of your environment, but you can choose who occupies your time and mind. That's the art of relationship selection. So how do you practice this? Start with a simple matrix. One axis is emotional. Do you feel positive or negative after being with them? The other is action. Do they help you move forward or hold you back? After a week, the patterns will show you who to keep and release. Don't panic if the release list is long. That means you're clearing space for the deeper connections waiting to arrive. When seeking new relationships, remember the principle of symmetry. You can't demand support, honesty, and loyalty if you don't give them first. Strong bonds don't grow from one-sided expectations. They grow when people lift each other, share responsibility, and protect core values. You might think, but I haven't found people like that yet. Don't lose heart. The Stoics remind us that you must learn to stand alone without being lonely before you find the right people. If you can't hold steady in solitude, you'll settle for shallow ties to escape the silence. Learn to enjoy quiet, train yourself, and when you're strong enough, you'll naturally attract those with the same energy. Stability inside is the loudest signal for drawing the right ones in. You'll feel a shift when you finally have a small but solid circle. No more wasted hours on pointless arguments. No more being pulled by gossip and judgment. Instead, you'll have companions who share the load, remind you of your why when you falter, and cheer you on when you're weak. Then focusing on yourself stops feeling lonely. It becomes a shared journey where personal strength multiplies through true collaboration. But building healthy relationships doesn't mean you'll never be hurt. You'll still face betrayal, disappointment, and misunderstanding. Don't let that close your heart. The Stoics teach that pain is unavoidable, but you can learn not to let it define how you connect and love. A bad relationship doesn't mean all relationships are bad. Sometimes losing the wrong person brings you closer to the right ones. You've crossed a significant milestone at this stage from focusing inward. You've learned how to expand that strength outward into meaningful connections. But the journey isn't over. Even with good people around you, there will still be days when your spirit feels empty, your energy runs thin, and motivation dries up. That's when you need another kind of strength, a quiet but enduring power, gratitude, and mindfulness. Only when you learn to be fully present and grateful, even in the most minor things, can you hold peace and move further. And that will be the next step in this journey. Step 10. Practicing gratitude and mindfulness. Many people overlook a simple truth the moment we open our eyes in the morning. We often rush headfirst into the chaos of life and forget the most basic fact: we're still alive. Instead of noticing the breath moving through our chest, the heart still beating to keep us here, we grab the phone and let a flood of messages, notifications, and other people's lives pull us away. That's when you lose presence. That's when you lose control of the day from the very first minute. And if the start of your day belongs to distraction, the rest of your day will almost certainly be lived in reaction, not by choice. The Stoics knew long ago the value of gratitude and mindfulness. They didn't see them as spiritual luxuries, but as disciplines. Because if you don't rule your mind, you become a tool for others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let your mind rule itself, for it can make a heaven or hell in the exact moment." His reminder is clear: when you're awake and grateful, you see where you are, what you have, and what needs to be done. When you're blind and unrestrained, the outside world shapes your entire inner life. Modern psychology calls this the cognitive lens. The mind magnifies what it focuses on. If you focus only on what you lack, life feels like one big hole. If you focus on what you already have, you see a strong foundation to keep building on. That's why gratitude and mindfulness must be trained daily, not as luxuries, but as survival strategies. Start with the minor things. Before touching your phone each morning, take 3 deep breaths and remind yourself, I am alive. I still have a chance to change. It may sound simple, but that's the moment you take back authority over your mind. Instead of being pulled into the storm outside, you center yourself and choose how to begin. Next, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't need to be grand, just real. A roof over your head, a loved one nearby, a healthy body to walk out the door. By writing them down, you're programming your mind to seek light instead of darkness. Many mistake gratitude for complacency, as if being thankful means giving up ambition. But gratitude doesn't kill desire, it keeps it from consuming you. When you're grateful, you can still strive from a place of strength instead of lack. You stop chasing to fill a void and start moving to express your potential. That's the difference between burning out and building steadily. Mindfulness works the same way. It doesn't mean you must sit cross-legged for hours like a monk. Mindfulness means being fully present in what you're doing. When eating, eat. When walking, walk. When talking, listen. Every act done with presence is a mental discipline. And here's the miracle: when you live in each moment, you start noticing things you once ignored: the flavor of food, the sound of birds at dawn, the quick smile of a stranger. They don't change the world, but they change your world. One famous actor admitted he almost lost his career because of his habit of starting each day by reading negative comments about himself. Those words twisted him into a distorted version of who he was living to react instead of living for his purpose. The turning point came when he began his days by writing 3 things he was grateful for and could control. He said, I realize I don't need to be liked. I need to live by what I've chosen. That's mindfulness. That's gratitude. That's taking back ownership of yourself and you. How long has it been since you really observed your own mind? How long have you let the new social media or other people's words decide your mood daily? If you've never stopped to ask, is this really necessary for me? Then maybe it's time to reset. Marcus Aurelius left us a sharp reminder. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? A small question, but it can cut through endless distractions and pull you back to center. Practicing gratitude and mindfulness isn't easy, especially in a world constantly demanding your attention. But it's precisely because it's hard that it's valuable. Gratitude and mindfulness are the shields that protect you from comparison and expectation. They're the ropes that pull you back when ambition blinds you. They're the lamp that keeps the path visible even on your darkest days. Here's one simple practice you can start right now. The 3 channels of awareness. When you feel yourself drifting, pause and ask, what is my body feeling right now? Where is this emotion coming from? Does it serve my purpose? If the answer is no, stand up, walk for a few minutes, breathe deeply, and write down your next action. Small as it sounds, these short interventions train you not to react unthinkingly, but to stop and choose. And finally, remember this: gratitude and mindfulness aren't just for you to feel enough. They're for you to radiate steadiness to others. You become a quiet but powerful example when you are present and grateful. Others see peace in you and they want to learn. This is how real influence spreads, not through words, but presence. When you practice gratitude and mindfulness long enough, you discover a profound truth. You don't need to shout to prove yourself. You don't need to beg for recognition. You don't need to fight for the spotlight. Because real light comes from within, and when it burns strong enough, it naturally shines outward, guiding you and the people silently watching you. By now, the journey has taken you from discipline, focus, vision, learning relationships, to gratitude and mindfulness. But it doesn't stop here. Because once you've mastered your inner life, a new question arises. How do you share this strength with others, not through empty words, but through how you live? That is the next step of this journey. Step 11, become a quiet example leading through presence. There comes a stage in the growth journey where you realize true strength is no longer found in speeches, bold declarations, or proving yourself to others. Instead, it's found in how you live in the small actions you repeat in the steady rhythm that doesn't need an audience. This is a level of maturity few ever reach, becoming a quiet example leading through your presence in rooms. Not everyone will notice what you're doing, but those who look closely will see your consistency, inspiring them more deeply than any speech. In Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let your life prove the philosophy, not just your words." He didn't write meditations to sell books or to show off his wisdom. He wrote it for himself as a way of living out his principles without needing an audience. It reminds us that the most powerful presence doesn't come from how many people know your name, but from how faithfully you live your values. When you stay disciplined, even in the small things, waking up on time, exercising regularly, keeping promises to yourself, you send a quiet message: I can be trusted. Look around in daily life and you'll see examples. The colleague might rarely speak at work, but always delivers on time without excuses. At the gym, the middle-aged man might show up at the same hour every day, never posting his progress online, but steady as the sunrise. These people don't chase attention. They show up, and their consistency creates a new standard for everyone around them. Psychologists call this the silent spread of behavior. When one person stays disciplined in a group, others gradually adapt to that rhythm. No orders, no slogans, just a steady presence. That's how you become a leader without ever holding a title. Leading through presence means living your values so clearly that people can't help but notice. To do this, you must first align words with actions. Your words will lose weight if you tell others to stay disciplined but oversleep every morning. But if you say nothing and live it out, one day someone will ask, how do you keep this up? That's the moment your strength spreads. A father who wakes at 5 every morning to read doesn't need to demand his children do the same. Years later, they'll remember that image as a silent but powerful lesson. Here's a simple strategy. Choose one core action that reflects your values and do it consistently. It might be journaling each night, training in a sport, or simply refusing to complain in hard times. Repeat it until it becomes part of you, so that anyone who spends time with you feels it without you saying a word. They may not comment, but they'll remember your steadiness, which will nudge them toward their discipline. But beware of one trap. Don't turn your consistency into a hidden plea for recognition. If you keep going but secretly hope for praise, you'll be disappointed when no one notices. Stoic practice means doing the right thing, not for outside eyes, but for inner integrity. A quiet example only has power when it needs no applause. The influence comes from authenticity, not from performance. As you become that example, you'll notice something else. Your presence won't just shape others, but will strengthen your trust in yourself. Every time you stay consistent, you reinforce your bond with yourself. You start believing in yourself more deeply, which becomes armor against criticism or doubt. Others may waver, but you know where you're going and why. So imagine this. How would you act if you lived daily as if someone were silently learning from you? If you knew your patience today could teach your child resilience, tomorrow would you quit so easily? If you knew your honesty today could inspire someone else to live truthfully, would you compromise? This isn't pressure. It's a reminder every action carries weight whether you notice or not. And once you learn to lead by presence, you'll see that the journey of focusing on yourself until you win isn't just about victory for you. It extends into planting seeds in others through how you live in your authenticity. But to keep leading this way, you'll need another skill, knowing when to stay silent and hold space for others to walk their path. Because a powerful presence doesn't always mean stepping in. That is what the next step of the journey is, about the art of silence, letting your strength multiply without a word. Step 12, the art of silence, the power of space. The older you get, the clearer it becomes. Not every moment calls for words. Not every situation needs you to prove yourself. Sometimes silence is the strongest answer. Modern life thrives on noise, from the constant buzz of phone notifications to endless debates on social media. Everyone wants their opinion heard, seen, and validated. Yet the more we chase that noise, the more we lose the ability to listen to ourselves. That's when you must learn a skill that looks simple but is more complex than any speech, the art of silence. In Stoic philosophy, silence never meant passivity. It is a form of inner strength, a way of holding sovereignty over your mind. Epictetus once taught we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more than we speak. Silence is the foundation of observation. When you stop rushing to react, you give yourself space to see things as they are. Marcus Aurelius also wrote Meditations. Many times I've regretted speaking, but never regretted staying silent. This isn't advice to become mute. It's a reminder that most mistakes come from words spoken too quickly, while silence opens the door to clarity. Think back to the last time you got angry and snapped back. Did those words help you move forward, or did they leave regret? Now imagine if you had paused, stayed silent for just a few breaths. Everything might have shifted. Silence allows you to choose your response instead of being dragged by emotion. In modern psychology, this is called the golden pause, brief moment that can change everything. The art of silence isn't just for arguments. It shows up in daily life when you resist the urge to complain despite hardship, when you refuse to join in gossip, when you don't take the bait from provocation. Each time you prove you are the master, not a servant of your emotions. That kind of restraint earns respect, sometimes even fear, though you never raised your voice. Picture a tense meeting. Everyone's arguing voices, overlapping, each one desperate to be right. Then one person sits quietly observing, listening. When the noise dies down, they speak short, precise, to the point. Suddenly, the whole room goes still. Not because the voice was loud, but because calm has weight. Silence first, then words. That's how your speech becomes valuable. To train this art, start with 3 practices. First practice, full listening. When someone speaks, don't cut in, don't prepare your rebuttal in your head. Listen. Second, hold back immediate reactions. If someone irritates you, pause, breathe, count to 10. Third, choose moments not to join in. If what you plan to say doesn't add real value, let silence speak instead. Seneca once wrote, if what you're about to say isn't necessary, let silence say it. From a practical view, silence is also a strategy. In negotiation, the quiet one holds power. Silence creates pressure on the other side to fill the gap. In relationships, silence at the right time prevents scars from careless words. In work, silence allows you to observe and gather information before deciding. It's like keeping your trump card close instead of playing it too soon. And you'll notice something else when you practice silence. People begin to see you differently. When you're not so easily pulled into pointless debates and don't rush to show off, you start to carry weight. People sense that you think before you act, making them pay attention when you finally speak. The power of silence isn't about hiding, it's about choosing the right moment to reveal. But remember, silence isn't shrinking away or avoiding. If you're silent out of fear or to dodge responsibility, that's weakness, not wisdom. Stoic silence is deliberate. It cuts out the unnecessary but speaks firmly when principles are at stake. It's like a sword in its sheath, not always visible, but when drawn, decisive and sharp. Try this small exercise. Choose 3 moments to practice silence each day. One while listening to someone speak, one when something annoys you, and one when you're tempted to boast. Hold silence in all 3, then journal your reflections at the end of the day. You'll be surprised how much more control you have than you thought. Silence also opens another kind of strength, the strength of presence. When you stop speaking, you're forced to be fully here, noticing your breath, the eyes across from you, the faint sounds in the room. These small details anchor you to the present. And from that presence comes a new kind of freedom from the need to argue, and win. You are steady like a rock in the stream. You'll feel yourself shift when you step into the art of silence. Arguments lose their pull. Provocations no longer sway you. You speak less, but each word carries more weight. And most of all, you rediscover inner space, the quiet room where your voice can be heard again. And from that silence comes the ground for the next step, learning to choose and cultivate the right relationships. When the noise no longer rules you, you clearly see who truly matters on your path. That's what we'll explore in the next step, how to select and nurture the connections that lift you instead of dragging you down. Step 13, training mindfulness and gratitude. There's something strange about modern life. The busier people get, the more material success they have, the easier it becomes to forget the simplest things right in front of them. Each morning we wake up and immediately get pulled into the stream of phones, work, texts, emails, and notifications. We often miss a critical truth. In those first few seconds, we're still alive. We've been given one more day to move forward, make things right, love, and begin again. And that simple recognition is the root of 2 powerful forces: mindfulness and gratitude. The Stoics never dressed it up with fancy words like we do today. They didn't discuss mindfulness as a trend or call gratitude a healing technique. But in Marcus Aurelius's journals and Epictetus's teachings, one lesson repeats: live awake in each moment and appreciate what you have, because everything is fragile. Mindfulness isn't about sitting cross-legged for hours ignoring the world. It's the ability to return your mind to the present even when life is noisy. It's eating and tasting a meal instead of scrolling on your phone. It's walking and hearing your footsteps on the ground instead of drifting into tomorrow's worries. The Stoics called this living with attention, refusing to let your days slip by unconsciously. Gratitude works the same way. It isn't just writing 3 things in a journal at night and leaving them on the page. Gratitude is choosing to look at yourself and your life with less comparison and more acknowledgement that you have a body still strong enough to walk into the morning sun, that you have family or a friend or even just a book that stayed with you through lonely nights. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. It places pain in a bigger frame and sits beside countless reasons to keep going. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show that writing down things you're grateful for, even for just 21 straight days, literally rewires the brain. Stress drops, life satisfaction rises. It isn't magic, it's how your focus reshapes your life experience. The Stoics knew this centuries ago when Seneca said, "It's not that life is too short, but that we waste too much of it on meaningless things." Gratitude is a way of stopping that waste. Instead of obsessing over what's missing, you return to what's already here. Practicing mindfulness and gratitude doesn't have to be complicated. Pick 2 moments each day, morning when you wake up and night before you sleep. Instead of grabbing your phone in the morning, please close your eyes, briefly breathe deeply, and remind yourself, I'm still here. I have another chance to live this day well. One small sentence, but it changes the way you step out of bed. At night, instead of replaying what you didn't finish, write down 3 things you're thankful for. a hot cup of coffee, a short conversation, a quiet minute of peace. Small things repeated daily become the bedrock of inner strength. I once heard the story of a soldier returning from war. He had lost much friends, health, his peace of mind. Yet every morning he kept one ritual, stepping outside, taking a deep breath, and whispering to himself, "Thank you for one more breath." To others, it looked odd, but that ritual kept him from falling into despair. That's the power of gratitude, not to change circumstances, but to change how you face them. If you think you're too busy to practice, remember busyness isn't an excuse. It's the signal that you need mindfulness and gratitude even more. One deep breath can save you from hours of tension. One short journal entry can remind you that life is more than deadlines and demands. You don't wait for everything to be perfect before you're grateful. In fact, gratitude matters most in the middle of chaos. The modern world tells us happiness comes from having more, faster, louder. The Stoics went the opposite way. Happiness comes from wanting less and seeing more depth in what you already have. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't long for what you don't have, but reflect on what you do have and how much you would want it if it were gone." That isn't just philosophy, it's medicine for anyone lost in the trap of endless comparison. And when you train yourself in mindfulness and gratitude, you realize something important. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish. It becomes a source of light for others. You live more fully, more calmly, more sincerely. And that presence without effort starts to spread, becoming an anchor for those around you who feel lost. Because in the end, the goal of focus on you until you win isn't about winning just for yourself. The greater goal is this: once you've found your footing, you pass on that strength not through speeches or noise, but through how you live. And that leads to the final step of this journey, the step of connection and influence, where your inner strength begins to ripple outward into the lives of others. Step 14, connection and spreading strength. After walking a long path, building discipline, sharpening focus, practicing mindfulness and gratitude, you arrive at a simple truth: no one truly wins alone. Every lesson before this has given you a solid foundation, but in the end, the value of your journey isn't measured by how high you've climbed, but by what you can pass on to others. That's the moment you step out of the narrow boundaries of the self and understand that personal strength, if it remains only within you, is still incomplete. The Stoics never glorified isolation. They taught self-reliance and reminded us that we are part of a greater community. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is not suitable for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." His reminder was clear: we are bound within the web of humanity. Your discipline, calm mind, and clarity are not just for yourself. They are your contribution to making the world around you stronger, steadier, better. Spreading strength doesn't mean standing on a stage shouting slogans or becoming a celebrated leader. In reality, the most significant strength is passed quietly. It's when a friend notices your consistency in training each morning and starts rethinking their habits. It's when a coworker sees you staying calm in tense meetings and learns to manage their emotions. It's when your children watch you endure hardship without complaint, and they naturally understand that patience and responsibilities are worth more than whining. Modern psychology calls this behavioral contagion, the spread of behavior. We are shaped by those around us far more than we admit. When you embody discipline, gratitude, and focus, you plant seeds of change in the minds of others without forcing anything. This is a connection without pressure. One of the most common mistakes is believing you must wait until you achieve something massive before influencing others. The truth is the opposite. Influence doesn't come from significant dramatic victories. It comes from small actions repeated consistently. The neighbor who sees you run every morning, that's influence. The friend who watches you choose learning over shallow distractions, that's influence. It is consistency, not display, that makes a model worth following. Spreading strength also means choosing the right people to connect with. You don't need a massive circle. You need a handful of people who share your values and walk in the same direction. They become mirrors, reminders, anchors when you are tired. The Stoics didn't seek crowds. They sought spiritual allies, people who don't pull you off course, but help you stay steady. A circle like that, small but strong, multiplies your strength. And once you carry discipline, focus, gratitude, and mindfulness, you will naturally become a signal others gravitate toward. You won't have to announce, it won't have to prove it. Your calmness and steadiness will speak for themselves. In a noisy world, the ability to stand still and hold your ground is a stronger signal than any speech. But remember, spreading strength doesn't mean carrying everyone's burden. You cannot and should not save the whole world. You can keep your fire burning and let those who need it find the light. A true teacher doesn't go searching for students. He lives by his principles, and the right students appear. You're the same. Live rightly and you'll become an inspiration for those ready to change. A Marine once described long marches. He said it wasn't the commander's shouts that kept the unit steady, but the rhythm of the man at the front. If he walked firmly, the group held firm. If he faltered, the group wavered. Life works the same way. You don't need to shout for people to hear you. You need to walk steadily, step after step, and your rhythm will be felt. Here is the final truth: when you focus on yourself until you win, that victory doesn't belong to you alone. It becomes a shared victory because the strength and change within you ripple outward. This completes the circle of the journey from self-discipline to resilience to becoming a source of power for the community. And in this spreading of strength, you also learn humility. You are not the center of the world, but you can be an anchor for someone lost. Sometimes a single act, an encouraging word, a calm response, a steady routine can change another person's life. This last step isn't an ending, it's an invitation. An invitation to look back at the road you've walked, recognize the strength you've built, and be willing to share it, not by boasting, but by living it. Victory isn't just about standing on the mountaintop. It's about reaching out your hand so others can climb too. And from here, your journey opens into a new chapter. It's no longer focus on you until you win. It becomes focus on you so others can rise too. You win not to enjoy it alone, but to prove that anyone can if they're willing to begin, persist, and live true to themselves. You've come a long way. From the early days of doubt where you had to learn discipline to get through the morning to the nights where fatigue pressed down, but you chose to keep going instead of giving up. From learning to focus in a world full of noise, to practicing gratitude and mindfulness, to finally connecting and spreading your strength, every step hasn't been a separate lesson. It's been a brick laid upon another building, an inner fortress where you can stand steady against life's storms. And if you look back, you'll see something clear. This journey was never about impressing anyone else. It was never about likes, praise, or applause. It has always been about one reminder: true victory begins when you focus on yourself. Everything else, fame, wealth, recognition, is just a byproduct. What matters most is the person you become along the way. Stoicism, the philosophy that guided warriors, emperors, and ordinary people alike, never promised an easy life. It doesn't say that if you live by its principles, you'll avoid hardship or instantly find success. Instead, it gives you something far more valuable: the calm and the strength to continue even when life doesn't unfold as you hoped. It teaches you that while you cannot control the world, you can control yourself. And when you master that, you've already won half the battle of life. Remember, this victory is not always loud. Sometimes it's just the morning you don't hit snooze. You write one more page in the afternoon when your mind is heavy. The evening you put down your phone and open a book instead of scrolling through meaningless noise. These are the moments no one sees, no one applauds, but they are the foundation of real change. And one day when you look back, you'll realize how far you've come. You won't need to brag, you won't need to explain. Your consistency, focus, discipline, and gratitude results will speak for themselves. When someone asks your secret, you'll smile. Because there is no secret, only this focus on you until you win. But let me remind you of this truth. The journey has no finish line. There will always be new challenges, noise, and temptations to quit. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're alive, you're still growing, still sharpening. A life without challenges would be a life without victories worth anything. So when you leave this video, I don't want you to feel inspired for a few minutes. I want you to begin today. Write down one small thing you'll do to focus on yourself. Wake up 30 minutes earlier, journal for 10 minutes, do a short workout, anything as long as you start, then do it again tomorrow, and the day after. Step by step, that is how you win. Make this a promise to yourself. You will not quit just because others don't believe in you. You will not stop just because results haven't shown yet. You will not sell your dream for the cheap comfort of safety. Because as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the best revenge is not to be like the one who wronged you. And your most significant victory is not proving yourself to the world, but proving to yourself that you were strong enough to see it through. If these words resonate with you, give me a small sign, leave a like, a comment, or even a silent nod where you sit. Let me know you're still here, still walking this road. And if you want to continue building discipline, gratitude, focus, and strength through Stoic wisdom, subscribe to the channel. Not to follow me, but so you'll never have to walk alone. Because this path is not just mine, it's not just yours. It's ours as ordinary people, trying each day to grow stronger, clearer, freer. And if you persist, if you continue one day, you will become the light someone else looks for when they face their own darkness. So don't stop here. Continue. Wake up tomorrow morning and start again. You don't need cheers. You don't need recognition. You need to know you're keeping a promise to yourself. And when you do that, you've already won. Focus on you until you win. And when you do, spread that strength so others can rise and win in their own way.